Okay, hi BookTube, Aaron here, hope you're doing okay. Today I'm going to be doing a tag. I'll be doing the currently reading tag, which was created by Charlie Ray, as very kindly tagged by Micah Cummings. And it's one of those, it's really fun, nosy tags that gets into your sort of reading habits and I suppose just the funny little quirks of someone's reading life. Maybe the things that you might not talk about too much if you have a booktube channel or talk about with other friends who read books. And I'm in a bit of a weird sort of semi-sedated mood, even more sedated than usual. So I was just listening to some really rather cool Icelandic jazz. If you wanna sort of get in the same mood, I'll have the music in the description, along with the original video and Micah's video as well. But let's get into the tag. So the first prompt here is, how many books do you usually read at once? And for me, I try my best to keep it to 3 books. So at the moment, I'm reading 3 books at once. So I've got a book of poetry. So I'm currently reading Paul Muldoon's Frolic and Detour, which I picked up recently. And then for like a main sort of fiction book, I'm reading Beloved by Toni Morrison. And then as like a longer term reading project, I've got Proust's Remembrance of Things Past, and I'm in the 2nd volume. And so that's sort of generally how I try to keep my reading, to have maybe 1 book of poetry, 1 book of fiction or non-fiction, and then like a longer project, because I generally have books that I'm dipping in and out of, but I don't necessarily I'm not constantly reading them, so I wouldn't really count them. So it's kind of evolved out of trying to keep 1 book of prose and 1 book of poetry going at once, but it's nice to have that longer project at the same time. But my record so far this year, I think, is 7 books at once. There was a point maybe around sort of March, April time, I think it was. Somehow I was just reading 7 books at once. My record is 11 books, which was during lockdown, which was a bit crazy. Number 2, if you're reading more than 1 book at one time, how do you decide when to switch reading the other book, or switch to reading the other book? And do you read a certain number of pages in each book? I just kind of go on how I'm feeling, the mood I'm in. I don't have any particular number of pages or a certain amount of time that I'll spend on each book. I'll just go on, if I reach a point where I feel like the books sort of reach a natural break, or I feel that I just felt like I've had enough time with that book, I'll switch to the other one. And sometimes I'm reading and then I look at the other books that I might be reading and just feel a little bit guilty, or maybe feel like they're missing out, so I switch. But there's no rhyme or reason to it. Number 3 is, do you ever switch bookmarks while you're partway through a book? Not normally. I tend to dedicate a bookmark, although I did do it recently. I was reading a book and I realised I'd taken it out with me. I was out of the house and I didn't have a bookmark with me, so I just looked in my wallet and I had a £1 note, which is quite unusual, from Guernsey, and so I used that as a bookmark, and then I transferred that into Proust. So I was just using a normal bookmark, which I've moved over to another book, and this £1 note from Guernsey is what I'm using as a bookmark for Proust at the moment, which is, sort of, I suppose as currency goes, a little closer to France than a British £10 note would be. Anyway, number 4 is, where do you keep the books you're currently reading? I just wrote down in my notes here, close. I try to have them nearby. If I'm sort of in the house, they tend to be on a little sort of sideboard table thing next to the armchair, where I tend to do most of my reading, or if I'm out and about, then they tend to be in my bag. So yeah, I try to keep them about, and when I am out and about as well, I have this little cloth case that, you know, if I get as many books as I can into this. Then number 5 is, what time of the day do you spend the most time reading? There's not really a specific time of the day, I don't think. It really depends on the day when I'm working. I try to get sort of into work or nearby work with enough time left over so I can spend maybe 15-20 minutes reading before I have to go to work. And so I do a bit of reading sort of earlier in the morning. But generally, unless it's a day off where I could spend any point I wanted in the day reading, looking back over the last few years, most of my reading is generally done between, I'd say, around 10 p.m. and about 2 a.m. In the morning. So in that sort of late evening period, just when there are less distractions around and I can really concentrate. Okay, then sort of similar to that, then number 6 is, how long do you usually spend reading, or how long do you read in one go? Normally about 30 minutes, not that much longer. I think sometimes, even if I have a day off and I could maybe even spend the whole day reading, when it gets to about 45 minutes or an hour, most of the time then I get up and do something. I sort of do some chores, do some gardening or something. Whereas it's very rare that I spend hour upon hour reading. Number 7 is, do you read hardcovers with the dust jackets off? I normally do. Every now and then I keep them on. Say if it's a shorter hardcover book where I might just be reading it in one sitting at home. But particularly, I don't generally read a lot of hardcovers. They seem a bit of a luxury to me. But when I was reading books for the BookTube Prize, there are a few books there that just hadn't come out in paperback yet. So I had to, I in most cases had to get a hardcover. And so when I was reading the Morning Star by Karl Ove Knausgaard, I generally took the hardcover off, and I actually quite like the way it looks without the hardcover, and even then it got a bit scuffed just because I'm clumsy, but I don't really mind that too much. And there is something I do quite like about a hardcover with the dust jacket off as well. I'll just move that to one side. It kind of seems, I don't know, weird and mysterious, like a secret version of the book. And I think I first realised this when I was a kid, when I was reading this edition of The Hobbit, which I've shown a few times on the channel. And for a long while it didn't occur to me that I could just take the dust jacket off and there'd be something else underneath. And I took it off and I just saw this spine, and I was like, oh, it's the secret version of the book. And it just seems so special and mysterious to me as a kid. Number 8 is, which position do you use to read? Which is a bit of an odd one, but generally I sit. I can't really read lying down with the book on top of me. But for a long time I used to read a lot leaning forward. I might pop in a little example here. I lean forward, I feel like I'm really concentrating on the book. And then, particularly during lockdown, I spent much more time kind of sat on the floor, leaning against something, a bit like this. Whereas now, although I do both of those from time to time, I found myself being able to relax a little bit more, leaning back into the chair, stretching out my legs and looking a bit more like this. So it's a bit of a mix for me, and I'm sure it'll continue to evolve and change in time. Number 9 is, do you take a book you're currently reading with you everywhere you go? And generally speaking, yes, I do. It's nearly always the times when I haven't brought a book with me, where where I find myself in a situation where I wish I brought a book with me, if I'm stuck in a long queue or I'm waiting for someone and have nothing to do, and I'm just like, I should have brought a book. So, as much as I can, I bring a book with me everywhere I go, just in case. And then number 10 is, how often do you update the book you're currently reading on like Goodreads or an app like that? And for me, again, it's one of those things there's no rhyme or reason to. There might be days where I do it multiple times a day, particularly if I've got a lot of reading in that day, as it's just a good way I find it satisfying to see how much I read at different points of the day. And there is something to the percentages that you get on apps like Goodreads. I also use Storygraph when it comes to the statistics. I find them really satisfying. So I also use Storygraph for that side of things. It's just satisfying seeing the percentage. And even though I can see the bookmark making its way through the book, I don't know, there's something to be said for the percentage that I just find really satisfying. And there we go, that's the end of the tag. The last little bit here, the last prompt is, who would you like to tag? And I got a little list of people, only 4, who I don't believe have done the tag yet. So I will tag Greg from another Bibliophile Reads. I'll tag Shelley Swearingen. I'll tag Jason from the channel of A Disappointed Man, and I'll tag David Wiley as well, because I don't believe I've tagged him in anything for a while. But there we go. I hope you found that interesting, and I hope you're having an interesting day. I'll see you again. Thanks for watching. Bye.